Yeah, because you're on them. I mean, you need to get
3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mayor Cyril Jefferson convening a special meeting of the High Point City Council. Here in the room, we have every member of council present along with our professional staff. Before we move into our agenda, we have the adoption of our agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Motion's been made by Councilmember Holmes and seconded by Councilmember Andrew. Any discussion on the motion to adopt our agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any against? The ayes have it, and we have an agenda. First item for presentations, item 2025-079, presentation of the City of High Point's 2024 to 2027 strategic plan. To present the City of High Point strategic plan, I'll pass it to our city manager, Tasha looking forward.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. We'll have Meredith Martin that'll present on our strategic plan. Just to recap where we left off, we had our initial discussion with council that was held in November of 2024. And then following hitting our broad goals, there were really 6 broad areas that we left that retreat with. And then we also looked at our values and looked at the vision for the city. It didn't have a lot of changes there. But we wanted to be able to have an opportunity to go back and actually have the facilitator then meet with our department heads and start looking at some of the key performance indicators and plugging in projects that align with the goals that council identified. So that's what we have to share with you all today. This is a document that is still very much a work in process. I think will always be one of those documents that's a work in progress as projects are coming on and things are completed. But we wanted to be able to share with you some of the key performance indicators that we have now that we'll be tracking, because this also will help to align with our budget. And then if there are any significant gaps that you all are seeing, if you all will kind of share that with us now. This isn't a document that we would put forward as for approval. This is, I think, the 6 key areas. Clearly, those are our council's goals, but we realize that some of the projects may shift and change as we're working through this over the years. So we just want to make sure that you all have a chance to see this, since we've had our staff follow-up discussion with the facilitator. And then if there are any glaring omissions or things that staff needs to add at this point, if you all will please share that at this time, and then we'll keep working through this. So with that, I'll hand it off to Ms. Martin to share where we are.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mayor, City Council. I'm Meredith Martin, Strategic Initiatives Manager here with the city, and I'm going to, as Ms. Logan Ford said, walk you through our kind of current phase structure of our strategic plan. So the manager kind of hit on a few of these notes, but just as a reminder, we had a day-and-a-half retreat in November where we worked through a lot of exercises with our with True North Performance Group as far as our leader in this process. We did some context mapping where we looked at history and political trends and citizen feedback and recent successes and accomplishments. We reviewed and affirmed our vision, mission, and core values, and then you all laid out our 6 strategic goals that we're going to use moving forward. With those strategic goals, you took our list of current strategic projects that are ongoing within the city and aligned those within those goals, as well as developed several outcomes within each goal that you would like to see the city move towards. So the next phase of the strategic plan development was a leadership workshop, which was held in January with department head leadership. True North Performance Group again came through and led this discussion. They provided an overview of your retreat from November. We provided specifics on how we arrived to the strategic goals that are in place. And then from that, we took the outcomes that you all had, your desired outcomes from those goals, and developed objectives and potential key performance indicators to help build out the framework of the strategic plan that we'll utilize moving forward. And so today we're going to go through that. So as a reminder, here are our 6 strategic goals. Within each goal, there will be several objectives, and below those objectives, there will be strategic initiatives. There will be strategic projects if there are some that align there, and then key performance indicators to track our progress towards those objectives. So just jumping on in, we'll start with our thriving economy goal. Here we had 5 objectives, the first being to focus on growing our tax base. So here, I'm not going to go kind of bullet point by bullet point, I'm just going to kind of give you an overview as we run through. But we want to promote economic development strategies to increase our tax base. And so projects that would fall under this objective would be our major industrial parks, as well as Samet Drive improvements. So those would be working towards that. The second objective would be to develop and revitalize urban spaces. This area we would be working towards developing a master plan for transformative spaces, and we would implement design standards to support sustainability, walkability, and placemaking. So projects that would go in this objective would include 300 Oak, as well as the shared use kitchen that staff is working on. Next, strengthening the local economy through small businesses within our community. So here we would be working on initiatives that would be providing grants and technical assistance to small businesses, as well as increasing our outreach and awareness that support programs and small businesses within our community. The next objective would be that's been in the framework for many years now, which is the Catalyst District or Catalyst area, and continuing to build on the development that has been accomplished there. We would continue to develop that space and then look at some processes to put in place for utilizing vacant properties within that area of the city. The final objective in thriving economy would be to create diverse job opportunities. So here we would focus in on developing and working with nonprofits with workforce training programs within our community, as well as developing incentives for job creation. So that's the area of thriving economy. I don't know if you want to stop and or we can keep going, whatever you all prefer, just let me know. So the second goal would be effective communication and engagement. Here, the first objective would be to foster a vibrant and diverse community, and this is primarily through events and festivals within our community. So we would look at partnerships and sponsorships with the various events that are going on in the city, as well as looking at our public space and enhancing that area, such as Oak Hollow Lake activation and looking at that public space that hosts these types of events. The next objective, increase marketing activation events in North High Point. This is touching on one of the objectives that you all put out as far as uniting the north and southern parts of the city. And this would also implement or continue working towards our branding initiatives with the city of High Point. The third objective would be to increase the citizen satisfaction survey ratings. So every other year, as many of you are probably aware, we conduct a citizen satisfaction survey. This year's survey results or report will actually take place later this month. But this item would focus on the areas that we're doing the poorest within that survey, and working with departments to try to find ways to improve those areas and really focusing in on those results. The last two objectives in this area are really about citizen education and involvement. The first would be to reduce the vacancy rate within our boards and commissions, so educating citizens on the opportunities to serve on city boards and commissions and getting involved with the city. The next is to increase the number of citizen education opportunities, and this would be establishing our Citizen Academy. This would include access to open data, which would be our Invisio project, and then working on kind of multimedia content as far as getting more information out, being more transparent with our citizens. So the next area is proactive urban design and planning. This area has 4 objectives laid out. One being increased connectivity for the community between multimodal options as well as walkability. So this would include safe pedestrian pathways and bike lanes within the city, and then evaluating multimodal transportation options. So some of the projects that are ongoing for this objective would include the RAISE grant, as well as the Bloomberg Micro Transit Implementation Plan that we've been. The next objective would focus on commercial plan review and permitting process. We're setting out a goal of completing 95% of commercial plan reviews within 5 days of that submittal. So that would be just evaluating that process and seeing what improvements can be made to try to reach that goal.
Can I ask a quick question about that?
Yes, sir.
The last notice I think we got, I can't remember if it came from our Metro Mayor's call on Friday or the recap from the town and state dinner that some of y'all went to. One of the emails I read talked about the shot clock that the General Assembly is looking to put in place on the permitting process. Does that shot clock
It was for-
align with that 5 days piece?
It does, and that was from the Metro Mayor's call.
That's right, that's from Metro.
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Okay. So the next item is, the next objective is related to transit ridership improvements. The city will work to evaluate our current schedules and routes and see what improvements could be made there, as well as conducting a ridership study. And the final objective for this area is to update development policies to increase mixed use and infill development. This is really going hand in hand with the High Point 2045 comprehensive plan. So here, we will focus on updating and adopting development ordinances and then increasing our development permits within that area. So next, the next goal is resilient community, which is really focusing on safety, health, and sustainability of the city. The first objective would be to improve community character and reduce blight, and this is primarily focusing on proactive code enforcement within high targeted areas, partnering with nonprofits for property improvement projects, and then streamlining the enforcement process that we have internally between departments. The next objective is to improve equitable access to essential services like food options and mental health resources. This area would have us continue to support community organizations providing access to healthy food, such as those that have farmers markets and food banks. And then also continuing to invest in partnerships with mental health service providers, such as the program that we have at the library this year that was part of this year's budget. And so continuing to evaluate those programs and build upon that. The third objective is to improve neighborhood vitality and safety. This area will continue to enhance community policing programs as well as youth programming. So that would be the kind of coffee with a cop kind of things, or mentorship programs or after school activities, as well as investing in public infrastructure for safe communities. So that would be items such as like city parks, our Center for Active Adults, and our library sensory gardens. And finally, and probably one of the bigger ones here, improve housing diversity and affordability. This area would evaluate incentives for developers to build affordable and mixed income housing within our community, funding for housing rehabilitation projects, investing in downtown residential projects, and then establishing the public and private partnership for affordable housing. Two more. So effective infrastructure and public utilities here, that caption pretty much captures it all, but objectives we set out include ensure safe and well-maintained roads, streets, and bridges. So this would be continuing to inspect and identify our bridges and streets and sidewalks to prioritize any repairs that are needed within that infrastructure. Next would be sidewalk infrastructure, and so that includes identifying high pedestrian areas that do not have sidewalks, and then building and expanding upon our sidewalk plan and establishing some annual targets there with our sidewalks. And then finally, modernizing and sustaining our public utilities. So we want to continue to upgrade our aging water and sewer system to prevent contamination and any disruptions of service, while also modernizing infrastructure and enhancing the grid resilience of our electric utility.
I have one note.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me. The expand and improve sidewalk infrastructure. I get a lot of people asking for more sidewalks, whatever, and I know that things are fluid and it's also tied into budget, but is there a way that we could have a plan on the website somewhere so people can know that this neighborhood is in the plan and the works, and maybe not commit to a date, but at least they know that we're working on it, thinking about it, and having some kind of, so that they can see that, oh yeah, we'll get to it when we have money and whatnot. But that's something I hear a lot, like, where are you gonna get a sidewalk here, there, everywhere,
Well, that was my suggestion, to have a sidewalk fund every year to sort of tapping into this backlog of.
But where are we with that?
Well,
That's gonna be part of the budget.
I was gonna say, I think the point of them presenting this plan is just to confirm alignment here.
Okay.
And if this is one of the objectives underneath it, then implementation and figuring out implementation comes next.
Right.
Department heads and what they'll do to think about it, but obviously at a council level, what we do with the budget will be huge. So I think some of those discussions will probably begin to follow. I think your question, Councilman Andrew, is more about what we're communicating out to the public, or what information we can make available.
Right.
Can we somehow manage those expectations for people about what's out there? And I know there's a list, so to speak, and it's a really, really, really long list. The question is, if we publish a really, really long list, do we not open up a whole nother can of
Right, I
worms?
mean, we have to balance the communication with the public versus committing to something that we can't realistically, support. So I'm just trying to find where that line is.
I think one thing that could be helpful is for us to be able to show kind of the project prioritization and how those are prioritized. And then being able to talk about what the funding is, the available funding that the city has, and the sources for that funding. Because some funding is part of our operating budget, but then there are other funds that may come through DOT or through like our CMAC or Safe Routes to Schools and those other funds, which may bump another project up if there's
Right.
another funding source available. So I think at least being able to identify those different funding sources that we have available and ones that will be funded for that year might be helpful, realizing that those other ones will have to be discussed at some other time.
And I think.
But I think you have to have some context around
Yeah.
why we're only able to fund this number of projects at this time.
Your point about how we decide and what sort of goes into making that decision, I think would be huge, so.
Thank you.
Yes, no problem. So the final goal is a high-performing organization. The objectives here include recruiting and retaining high-performing employees. So with this area, we want to foster a positive and inclusive workforce, and we would do this through continued recognition programs, which we've been expanding upon, as well as employee engagement. We would want to, the next objective, increase employee development opportunities, so looking at succession planning and employee growth, which is employee development. It was one of the special projects that we had in place. And then finally, optimize operational efficiency and fiscal responsibility. And so this would include the implementation of the enterprise resource planning system, so Workday within the city, as well as our annual audit and those sorts of things, those sorts of activities. So as far as implementation and next steps, following today's meeting, we would work with the management team to establish owners of all these objectives and initiatives. The projects mostly have owners, and so continuing that. And then from there, we would work with those departments and owners to finalize the key performance indicators. We'd go through the data that we currently have in place and we're currently collecting, see if we're missing anything as far as capturing our progress on these items and put that in the system. Next would be to launch our public dashboard. So Invisio will allow us to have our entire strategic plan out there where we can illustrate our progress on the plan all the way down to the initiatives. There's an area where we can track our projects and how we're coming along in all of those areas and how they're connected into the strategic plan. And then there's the dashboard feasibility with the key performance indicators and it all links together where you can see how everything is connected as we continue to progress and move forward.
What's the timeline on that piece?
So with this, we're hoping to have the strategic plan in place and do a demo with tech later this month. And then we're hoping to have, once we have the key performance indicators, put those in this summer and go from there.
Yeah, I think the public dashboard will dovetail nicely what I was asking for. So that's great. Thank you.
Exactly. And I think we're gonna do kind of a big kickoff and launch with that, with you all, is our plan. We don't plan to just kind of quietly turn it on. We want you all to know, we want the city to be aware that this is happening and this is where you go.
Thank you. So KPIs finalized summer, but dashboard realistically is 2026.
Oh, no, the dashboard will be live
fall.
this year.
This
Yeah.
fall?
This fall, yes, sir.
That's our goal for the fall.
Sorry, you about to talk about the quarterly updates?
Yeah, and then staff is proposing quarterly updates to you all on the progress of the strategic plan. Obviously, once the dashboard's live, you'll be able to check it as frequently as we have updates, but at this time, we're planning to do quarterly updates with staff, so a quarterly update to you all would be probably the most recent information we have on the dashboard.
So the first quarterly update, I mean, this is March, maybe by June, the KPIs, we're talking about KPIs being finalized, and in September,
It was,
we'll have,
go ahead.
no, good.
I like what you think, Mayor.
My goal would be for us to be able to actually have as many of our key performance indicators in place, so that you all would actually be able to see some of the progress. So I would say you're likely, the first quarterly update would be kind of that third quarter of the year, is what I would think. Because we'll launch in the fall, and I think we'll be ready to show how it all comes together in terms of a quarterly update to the council in the fall. Because we'll have some other touches in between when we actually launch the public dashboard, then when we have the key performance indicators going in, so then we'll actually be able to do a more cohesive update for you after all those components are completed.
Okay, and we're thinking just September, maybe, around that time frame, maybe?
Last quarter of the year, so that would be
Early
October.
fall. See, I can get early summer, early fall.
Yes. Early fall, at the latest, sir, yes.
Okay, got you, thank you. Appreciate it.
Do you want a specific date, Mayor?
Well, yeah.
October 31st.
You all know if I can get it done sooner, I will, but that's all.
No, that makes sense. And any other questions or comments?
I had something that's really just a language thing, but the use of the word citizen versus resident, I was just curious about that when we were talking about engagement in I think the second goal.
Yep.
And we were talking about community events, so I'm just curious. I know y'all probably spent a lot of time talking about language, so I don't want to stir that up, but I just think it's an important thing right now.
We could
Tell me, the different perspective from resident or citizen. Sometimes we talk about that and we see a different perspective when we talk about like business owners versus citizen versus resident. Is there a group or a segment that like is missing if we use citizen versus resident?
I guess if we put in the goal that our goal is, or if we put in the language that our goal is to engage citizens, I think that could be misconstrued into a different whole category of talking about people who are U.S. citizens or something like
There
that.
are a lot of refugees here in town.
And I just-
The
So does
world relief.
resident.
I think residents of High Point would be a more inclusive word.
Is that from said well with the
No, I agree with you.
Yeah, it's a good point. There are people here on like work visas who contribute through the furniture industry, and they're residents but they're not citizens. Quick question, the innovation track that we're doing with Bloomberg and Harvard, where might that work fall in these 6 goals?
with art and design.
Well, becoming that global design destination, where might that fall in these 6 goals?
Currently, we have it under thriving economy.
Okay, gotcha. Perfect, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions or comments? So, well done. Yeah, fantastic work, and give commendations to our consultant, who I thought did a really great job helping us sort of bring all the thoughts together and get it to this point. Appreciate staff spending so much time on this, and department leaders and so forth, so.
Sir, thank you.
Thank you. Our next item for discussion is item 2025-080, where we'll go into closed session for attorney-client privilege. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made by Councilmember Peters and recognized second by Councilmember Johnson. Any discussion on the motion to go into closed session? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any against? The ayes have it, and we are going into closed session.